So Bill Maher is at it again. Now, by the way, guys, I don't want to cover this stuff, and there's a number of reasons why I don't want to cover this stuff. But honestly, one of the big ones is that they always copyright Jack. HBO didn't used to copyright Jack stuff. Now they copyright Jack stuff. And so whenever I cover a Bill Maher clip, let's just say it's not something I'm doing for the monetary advantage. I'm covering it because I feel like it's the right thing to do to sort of show what's happened with this guy and how he's evolved or perhaps de-evolved. And he's becoming, unfortunately, more and more right-wing. Now, he claims, I didn't change. I'll leave that up to you guys to determine whether or not he changed. So Mediaite says, Bill Maher rails against abortion rights protests at Supreme Court justices' homes. Quote, it's wrong. It's intimidation. Now, again, this is from a guy who loves to talk about free speech and free expression and how cancel culture is wrong, wokeness is wrong, and you shouldn't shut people up or shut people down. You got to exchange various concepts in the marketplace of ideas. So let's see what he says.
Should there be allowed, because certainly the press spokesman at the White House is down with this. Jen Psaki asked about this. These are people who are demonstrating outside the houses of the Supreme Court justices. She said, I don't have an official U.S. government position on where people protest, but we do.
Okay, now hold on one sec. She said that at first. Honestly, her early comments on it was sort of based. But then, of course, the next day after the pressure, they immediately reversed and, were like, maybe not outside people's houses or whatever. They really backed off of this commentary. So now I don't know if he recorded this at the time when this was all she said, or if she said the other thing too and he just ignored it. But they did back off of that. They shouldn't have, but they did. Anyway, let's continue.
Yeah, I think we.
It's wrong. It's intimidation. It's against the law. Do we have...
Source needed, bro, or argument needed. It's wrong, it's intimidation, it's against the law. Hold on, these are peaceful protesters. We learned, because of a whistleblower, who, by the way, I agree with what they did too, we learned the Supreme Court is going to overturn the precedent of Roe versus Wade, and the right to choose is no longer going to be viewed as a right, and they're going to throw it back to the states, and at least 20 states, probably 24, 25 states maybe, are going to overthrow or totally eliminate and make illegal all abortions. So, in a situation like that, what would be the wrong answer? Well, the wrong answer is violence. You can't do violence. I disagree with violence as a matter of principle. The only time you should use violence is for, defense against imminent attack. Well, we're not talking about defense against imminent attack, so violence is out. Well, then what should you do? Voice your frustration, voice your concern, protest. Use your words. Say, hey, we disagree with this, and we disagree with this strongly, and we're going to let you know we disagree with it strongly. And if it makes you a little bit uncomfortable, good! That's the point. That's the point. So people are trying to draw a distinction here, but I think it's a distinction without a difference. And ultimately, the people who are criticizing the protesters are coming down against the spirit of the First Amendment. So let's continue, and then I'll keep going on it.
Some footage of look, it's not terribly violent, obviously, but would you want this outside?
It's not that it's not terribly violent. It's not violent at all. There's no violence at all.
Outside your house?
No, there's a 1950.
I didn't overturn Roe versus Wade. Would you want this outside your house? I didn't overturn what's been viewed as a constitutional right for decades. And by the way, even if it does make them uncomfortable, or it would make me uncomfortable, if I'm the president or if I'm a congressperson, there are people protesting outside my house. So what? So what? We have a right to free speech. We have a right to free expression. To assemble peaceably or peacefully or however they word it. We have a right to do that. All of a sudden now, like when you actually put to the test this notion of do you believe in the First Amendment? Do you believe in free speech and freedom to protest? When it's actually put to the test, and it's not about some woke college kid with pink hair, all of a sudden he's against it.
50 law that says you can't protest outside a residence to influence a judge. There probably is a constitutional...
And that law, if it went to court, would be thrown out. Or at least if the Supreme Court is being consistent on the First Amendment, it would be thrown out. I know Justice Antonin Scalia, who is very far right, would rule to strike that law down, because he very famously was strong on free speech and said, look, it doesn't matter if I like it or don't like it. It's irrelevant. The question is, do they have a right to do it? He said that about flag burning. There was a constitutional challenge to flag burning. Are you allowed to burn the flag? Is it protected under the First Amendment? And Antonin Scalia said, look, I might not like it. I might think it's stupid, but it absolutely is protected speech. This is no different. Now, they bring up a statute or a federal law, and I've heard a lot of right-wingers bring this up. Okay, walk with me here. The law is wrong and bad and unconstitutional, because we also had Madsen versus Planned Parenthood, which we covered on this show, and I showed you the case. And they found in no uncertain terms, not only are you legally allowed to protest outside of the abortion clinic if you're pro-life, you're also allowed to go to the houses of the abortion clinic employees and protest there. That's what they ruled. Now, it's not the wild, wild west. It's not like there are no, addendums to that and caveats to that. Of course there are. But they're all reasonable. It's all like, okay, so you can't violate a noise ordinance. If, it says you can't be loud after 8 p.m. and you're loud after 8 p.m., well, then you're in violation of the law, and then perhaps there can be some action taken against you. You could be arrested or fined or whatever. That's totally fine. That's totally fine. So you have to follow the noise ordinances. You have to follow the rules in terms of like trespassing and how far away from the house you have to be. But you're allowed to do it. If you're allowed to do it in front of an abortion clinic, you are. If you're allowed to do it in front of the employees of the abortion clinic, you are. You absolutely, in principle, should be allowed to do it in front of a judge's house, a politician's house, whatever. Now, anybody who disagrees with that is showing their whole ass. And they're saying, I'm not actually consistent on this idea of free speech and free protest. I'm not consistent about it. Because for the conservatives, now that they agree with the Supreme Court and they're against the protesters, all of a sudden the right is out the window. Now, Bill Maher's not a conservative. We know that. But he's siding with the conservatives with their goofy-ass argument here.
Challenge that could win against that, or there possibly is. But it would be much better, as is now going to happen in Washington, to have a major rally. I might even be there. To protest what could happen if the Supreme Court.
What's that going to do?
What's that going to do? Bill, it doesn't even matter what it's going to do. That doesn't matter. You are allowed to do it. It is a right to do it. You voice your frustration with the government, with the Supreme Court, with the decisions and how it's impacting your life and how it's literally taking away what's viewed as a constitutional right. It doesn't matter if it's going to do anything or not do anything. It doesn't matter if it's going to work or not. You're allowed to do that. As a matter of principle, you're allowed to do it. But now all of a sudden the principles, Mr. I'm so principled, it's out the window? It's astonishing. Now, to be fair to him, I don't think he's saying they shouldn't be allowed to protest, in a different format. But the idea that he's like, well, what's that going to do? What's anything going to do, Bill? What's anything going to do at this point? They said they're going to overturn it. It was a scathing decision. They're almost certainly going to overturn it. So what are our avenues for change? Even if it's a 3% chance of working or a 1% chance of working, you should still exhaust that avenue because it's the right thing to do as a matter of principle.
Let's just wait a month and see what the final decision is.
Bill, what it might do is it might lose the Republicans the Senate in the midterms, right?
Look, that's true. That's true. Now, I think the economy ultimately can and will override what's going on with Roe versus Wade in the Supreme Court. When you talk about inflation, when you talk about the downturn of the economy, the changing of interest rates is leading to some air coming out of the tire of the economy. That's probably going to override everything. The fact that Biden's really not doing anything and sitting on his ass all day and not eliminating student loan debt, at least not as of the recording of this video, and he's not legalizing marijuana through executive order, which he can do. He's not passing Build Back Better. That stuff will probably override the Roe versus Wade stuff. But the Roe versus Wade stuff, make no mistake about it, this is a political winner for Democrats. And so they want to lean into something where they have the majority of the population on their side. I totally understand that. And so it might have an effect of making what would have been a bloodbath election much less of a bloodbath.
That's what it really comes down to. Because the Republicans have not wanted, in swing states, they don't want to run on this issue. They haven't had accountability. They haven't had responsibility. Right. They've had settled law of the land, and they can complain about it. That's generally where you want to be in a midterm election. Yeah. So this is a challenge for the Senate. For the House, it's a wave for the Republicans either way. But this is dangerous for them.
Okay. Bill, what are you doing? Now, again, he swears he hasn't changed. You tell me. I mean, we covered the thing last week of him going after student loan debt elimination. This is a guy who supported Bernie Sanders in 2016. Bernie Sanders in 2016 and in 2020 ran on eliminating student loan debt. He used to support Bernie. Now he's ripping the idea of eliminating student loan debt and saying this doesn't appeal to working class voters. Of course it does. 64% of the country wants to do it. Most of the people who have student loan debt are poor or middle class. So what are you talking about? It doesn't appeal to working class voters. Again, he's sort of buying into that caricature of like the only working class voter that counts is some 55-year-old white guy in a hard hat. And by the way, even that guy oftentimes has student loan debt, sometimes has student loan debt. So when you go from Bernie Sanders in 2016 to Amy Klobuchar in 2020, as Bill Maher did, don't tell me you didn't change, dog. You changed. And every week on his show, it's free speech, free speech, free speech, cancel culture bad. And this is an instance where he's against free speech and he's for cancel culture. You're in favor of cancel culture. You know, clutching your pearls and falling on your fainting couch because people are peacefully protesting outside of a Supreme Court justice's house. Bill, what have you done? It's tough to see, man. It is tough to see. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.